Alright, non-locality and synchronicity in chart synthesis. Well, what does it mean? Right? In this video, we are going to go over the second question we have in our Celestial University document tab. And first we're going to go through this question in detail, and then we're going to go through the answer in detail. I use my own natal chart to help you guys understand astrology in most of my videos, as I have no clients to go off of right now. But hey, that's what astrology is cool with. We all have it. So, non-locality and synchronicity in chart synthesis. Let's see. Well, we start with a statement, which is quantum entanglement demonstrates that particles can influence each other instantaneously across vast distances. A phenomenon Einstein calls spooky action at a distance. Jung synchronicity proposes similar causal connecting principles in astrology. Our goal is to examine the native chart through the lens of quantum non-locality. And it looks like there's 4 sections. So, we need to analyze the Mars and Capricorn in the 9th house, opposition, Saturn and Cancer in the 3rd house, retrograde as an entangled pair. These planets are 180 degrees apart, yet function as a single system. Explain how career actions, Mars, instantaneously affects communication patterns, Saturn, and vice versa. Despite appearing separate in the chart, include house positions in your analysis, and this is 8 marks. Alright? Next, the native's vertex is in Libra in the 6th house, and it's conjunct Jupiter retrograde in Libra in the 6th house. It creates what we might call a synchronicity magnifier. Explain how this conjunction creates meaningful coincidences specifically in work environments and with partners. Use specific examples of how this might manifest in her proposed Sensory Sage startup. 6 marks. Alright, her Chiron in Aquarius is in the 10th house, trine Moon in Libra in the 6th house, demonstrates non-local healing. Her emotional wounds, Chiron, simultaneously heals through service in the 6th house and career 10th house, without linear causation. Elaborate on how this trine functions as a quantum healing field. 5 marks. And finally, the fixed stars, Algol, 26 degrees, 14 Taurus in the 1st house, and Fomalhaut, 3 degrees, 55 Pisces in the 11th house, are separated by signs and houses, yet form a quantum bridge between our identity, 1st house, and our gains, 11th house. Analyze how these stars interact non-locally to transform trauma, Algol, into artistic wealth, Fomalhaut. 6 marks. Okay? Now that we know what we need to do, let's answer this. And then in the next video, we're going to, of course, go over the next question. I have 12 videos. I have more videos coming to answer all these. And we're going to go step by step. Alright. So, what does it mean? Well, we need to start with an introduction, which is spooky action at a distance in the natal chart. Alright? We just got told a quote. And it has to do with this. So, quantum entanglement, which Einstein famously termed spooky action at a distance, describes the phenomenon where particles remain correlated such that measuring one instantly affects its partner, regardless of spatial separation. Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences without causal connection, provides the psychological parallel. In astrological terms, the natal chart is filled with such entangled pairs, planets in opposition, trines, and even seemingly unconnected points that function as unified systems. And this essay examines the native's chart through this quantum lens, demonstrating how non-local connections create the synchronicities that shape her wealth journey. So we go by our parts. Mars is in Capricorn, and we know that, and it's opposing Saturn in Cancer, and this is the entangled pair, and it's 8 marks of the grade. Alright, so the native's Mars is in Capricorn, which is exalted. And it's at 14 degrees 07 in the 9th house, and it's opposing Saturn in Cancer, which is what? Debilitated. Or you can say fallen. And it's at 20 degrees 53. Of course, retrograde in the 3rd house. Represents a classical quantum entangled system. 2 bodies separated by 180 degrees, yet functioning as an invisible unit, with an orb of 6 degrees 46 applying. This opposition is one of the most significant aspects in the natal chart. So we look at the nature of the entanglement. In quantum mechanics, entangled particles share a single wave function. Measuring the state of one instantaneously determines the state of the other. Similarly, Mars and Saturn in this opposition cannot be understood independently. They are 2 poles of a single system, governing the native's relationship between action, Mars, and limitation, Saturn, between ambitious expansion, 9th house Mars, and communicative contraction, 3rd house Saturn. So yep, we're competing with what? Exaltation, exalted versus fallen planets in aspects. Oops. God. Which is essentially just oppositions and squares. We could argue conjunctions, but really, yeah. Let's talk about the planet sign house function. So we know Mars is in Capricorn in the 9th, and because it's exalted, it's disciplined. Discipline action toward long-term vision, higher education, travel, and philosophy, and that's because it's in the 9th house. In Saturn in Cancer retrograde in the 3rd house is restriction to emotional communication, like family patterns, local environment, and siblings. So literally just, again, ancestral karma. I've talked about this in a previous video. This is a very karmic thing to hold in your chart. So this opposition indicates that these functions are phase-locked in a 180 degrees relationship, complementary opposites that cannot be separated, and when Mars acts, Saturn immediately responds. When Saturn restricts, Mars immediately compensates. Alright. Instantaneous influence across chart distance. Well, despite appearing in different houses and signs, Mars and Saturn influence each other non-locally. Let's consider how this actually manifests in someone's life. So for our first example, we have career actions, which is Mars, affecting communication, Saturn. Okay. When the native takes ambitious action toward her business, Mars in the 9th house, launching a website, contacting investors, enrolling in a course, she simultaneously experiences shifts in her communication pattern, Saturn in the 3rd. Without conscious awareness, the ambition triggers unconscious Saturn patterns. She may suddenly feel unable to speak. I speak over myself a lot, dyslexia, if you will, experience writer's block, or have conflict with siblings or neighbors. Saturn response appears as resistance or bad luck, but it's actually the entangled partner responding to Mars's activation. So with conscious awareness, she recognizes that communication challenges arising during ambitious phases are not obstacles, but indicators of entanglement. So when Saturn acts up, it signals that Mars is active elsewhere in the system, and she can then consciously work with Saturn, perhaps scheduling extra time for writing, practicing gentle communication, or honoring her need for silence while still pursuing Mars goals. Alright, our second example is communication patterns, Saturn affecting career actions, Mars. Look at how I just switched that. Career actions affecting communication versus communication patterns affecting the career actions, right? Mindfuck. Well, conversely, when she experiences Saturn in the third house challenges like familial trauma, activation, difficulty speaking, feeling silence, this instantaneously affects Mars in the ninth house. So without awareness, communication struggles lead her to abandon ambitious plans. She thinks, I can't speak, so I can't pitch my business, collapsing both poles into inaction. But with awareness, she recognizes that Saturn's activation is also Mars's activation. The very fact that she feels silence indicates that her ambitious self, Mars, is ready to speak. The silence is the entangled opposite of expression. By sitting with a silent Saturn, without abandoning the ambition, Mars, she allows the system to resolve into a new state, perhaps written communication over verbal, or finding a partner who speaks for the business while she creates. Alright, the quantum semi-classical model. Well, thank you. Well, we can model this opposition using the quantum semi-classical approach, where every planet exists in a superposition of states until observed. So this is what the Mars wave function would look like. As you can see, Mars equals action and inaction. And then we have our Saturn wave function, where Saturn equals restriction and flow. The entanglement means these wave functions are not independent but correlated such that the total equals action, restriction, and inaction flow. Alright? And it's the classic Bell state. Measuring Mars's action collapses Saturn into restriction, and measuring Mars's inaction collapses Saturn into flow. Alright. I won't go over that, because that's super important. We want to look at more astrologically based things in this essay. So, part B is the vertex in Libra conjunct Jupiter retrograde. So we know that vertex is in Libra at 24 degrees 03 in the 6th house, and it's conjunct Jupiter retrograde in Libra at 17 degrees 55 in the 6th house, with an orb of 6 degrees 07, and it's separating, and it creates what quantum physicists might call a synchronicity attractor, which is a point in phase space where meaningful coincidences cluster. Here's how we are going to understand the vertex as a quantum portal, alright? So the vertex, it's often described as a fated encounter point or a second descendant. In quantum terms, it represents a boundary condition, a point where the native's personal wave function interfaces with the collective wave function, creating interference patterns that manifest as significant meetings and events. So when Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion and luck and abundance, is conjunct the vertex, this boundary condition becomes magnified. The interference patterns are amplified, producing more frequent and more significant synchronistic events. Jupiter retrograde as the dimension of internalized expansion, the luck comes through introspection, past life merit, or seemingly coincidental internal revelations that then manifest externally. Alright, now the 6th house context. What is the 6th house? Well, both vertex and Jupiter are there in its work, service, health, daily routines. Alright? So it's the synchronicities are clustering around the work environment, service activities, health practices, and daily routines. Alright? Now I want to observe Chiron in Aquarius trining the moon in Libra. So Chiron's in Aquarius at 0 degrees 22, and it's in the 10th house, trining the moon in Libra at 6 degrees 14 in the 6th house, with an orb of 5 degrees 52, and it's separating, but it demonstrates non-local healing, the principle that healing need not occur through direct linear intervention, but can manifest through resonant connection across different life domains. Alright, so the trine as quantum coherence. Alright, In quantum mechanics, coherence refers to waves that maintain a fixed phase relationship, allowing them to interfere constructively. Holy shit. A trine 120 degrees is astrological coherence, okay? Planets in harmonious aspects share a resonant frequency that allows energy to flow without resistance. The Chiron moon trine indicates that our emotional body, moon, and our core wound, Chiron, are phase-locked in coherence. This is extraordinary. Most people experience wound and emotion as discordant, square opposition. Here they resonate harmoniously, meaning her emotions naturally lead her toward healing. Her wound naturally expresses through emotional intelligence, and there is no resistance between feeling and healing. Alright. So, let's talk about Algol and Fomalhaut. Ooh. Fixed star quantum bridge. Alright, so fixed stars Algol at 26 degrees 14 Taurus, my ascendant, conjunct the ascendant, and Fomalhaut at 3 degrees 55 Pisces in the 11th house, separated by signs, houses, and nearly 38 degrees of zodiacal longitude. Yet, they form a quantum bridge that connects the identity, the first house, to gains, the 11th house, transforming trauma into artistic wealth. Alright, so we look at the stars as quantum nodes. Fixed stars can be understood as quantum nodes, points where the galactic field interfaces with the solar system field, creating standing waves of probability. Each star carries a specific frequency. So Algol, also known as Beta Persei, the demon star associated with Medusa, beheading, and extreme transformation. Frequency is intense, catastrophic change that either destroys or empowers. And at 26 degrees 14 Taurus, it sits exactly on the ascendant, which is 23 degrees 55 Taurus with 2 degrees 19 of an orb, making it one of the most significant stars in the chart. Fomalhaut, which is Alpha Pisces, or Pisces Astruni, one of the 4 royal stars associated with artistic genius, wealth, fame, and spiritual protection. So the frequency is harmonious, fortunate, and elevating. At 3 degrees 55 Pisces is conjunct my 11th house stellium, where I have Venus at 0 degrees 02, Uranus at 6 degrees 50, and Sun at 8 degrees 09. Alright. We want to observe the quantum bridge mechanism. So despite their separation, Algol and Fomalhaut are entangled through the native's chart because 3 different things. Well, they're in mutual reception by element. So Algol in Taurus, which is earth, and Fomalhaut in Pisces, which is water. Earth and water form mutable crosses, creating a flow between them. And then they rule opposite hemispheres, Algol on the ascendant, which is the eastern horizon and the self, and Fomalhaut in the 11th house of gains and the collective. The self to collective axis is a natural entanglement. And they're connected by planetary rulers. Wow, that is not good. There we go. Algol in Taurus is ruled by Venus. Fomalhaut in Pisces is ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. Venus and Jupiter are in a natural relationship of minor benefic to major benefic. So, we need to transform trauma because that's what Algol brings, and we're transforming it into wealth, which is Fomalhaut. That brings wealth. So Algol on the ascendant, it's an extraordinary placement. So traditionally, it's considered the most malefic star It actually indicates someone who must face the monster, trauma, violation, beheading, loss of identity, and either be destroyed by it or emerge as a powerful healer. I have a long history of trauma. Alright, and here's what algal represents. The sexual relationship trauma I've experienced. Algal is associated with Medusa, who is violated and transformed into a monster. Familial trauma, beheading, equals cutting off from family. And the autism-related identity challenges, like beheading equals losing my normal self. However, algal's position on the ascendant means these traumas are visible, and they are part of how I present to the world, and this visibility is the key to transformation. So what is Fomalhaut in the 11th house doing to me? Or what does it represent? Artistic genius, because it's Pisces, applied to the collective needs, because it's the 11th house. And then wealth through creative technology, fame through healing work, and protection during transformation. So it means that every time I face trauma, which is algal, it activates Fomalhaut, which is wealth, and these two are entangled. Measuring one collapses the other. Let's do a wrap up. So what we do is we go over and synthesize everything we talked about, right? So now we know the native's chart. It demonstrates that astrology, viewed through the quantum lens, is not a collection of discrete placements, but a unified field of entangled probabilities. The Mars-Saturn opposition shows that action and limitation are not separate struggles, but a single self-regulating system. The Vertex-Jupiter conjunction reveals that synchronicity is not random luck, but the natural result of focused observation in work and service. Chiron Moon Trine proves that healing need not be sought separately from purpose. It emerges spontaneously, when career and daily life align. The algal Fomalhaut bridge demonstrates that even the most traumatic placements are entangled with the most fortunate, transforming the demon star into the royal star through conscious engagement. Alright? Subscribe, like, and comment for more astrology videos, and we will see you in the next one going over Q&A question 3.